Hello and welcome to Camp Xbox. The 6th generation had great racing games like Project Gotham Racing and Burnout, yet there are plenty out there that don't get mentioned anymore. LA Rush is one of those games, the last entry in the Rush racing franchise. I recently played through it, and I want to tell you about its history, lasting impact, and how I felt about it. I want to thank all my YouTube channel members for their support, and all footage was captured off of an original Xbox. And let's go ahead and hop into this game's history.
Driver, pull over now. We will do this the hard way.
The Rush series started in 1996 with San Francisco Rush Extreme Racing, released in arcades by Atari. It was a simple arcade racer but was noted for having great destruction and plenty of shortcuts. It was an arcade cabinet that did extremely well, with Next Generation magazine saying it was a comeback for Atari. Midway would develop and port this game to the Nintendo 64, which was a success as well. The sequel would be a Nintendo 64 exclusive with Atari developing and Midway publishing. In 1999, the third entry came out called San Francisco Rush 2049, and it came to arcades by Atari. But after that point, the company name was changed to Midway Games West at the end of 1999. It was ported to the Nintendo 64 and Dreamcast in 2000, and this entry is a notable one because it would put a sci-fi twist on the franchise with futuristic vehicles and tracks. And 2049 was a major success critically, and I remember playing this one back in the day and having a blast. Yet, as more next-generation consoles emerged, the Rush franchise wouldn't be as prolific. A fourth game named Hot Rod Rebels was cancelled during this period, but by 2004, LA Rush was announced to be coming in 2004, with elements like free roaming coming into the gameplay design. It wouldn't be developed by Midway West as they shut down by 2003, and instead development went to the Pitbull Syndicate Limited, which would have its name changed to Midway Studios Newcastle a week before the game's release. As 2004 went into 2005, info on LA Rush would be given out to outlets. In an interview with IGN, producer Steve Allison would say what this game was all about. It's an over-the-top arcade game with real licensed vehicles, aftermarket parts, personalities, and music set in an open-world city recreation of Los Angeles. He would also say, "The Rush of the past was too simple for where racing games have gone in the last 5 to 7 years. So it wasn't so much things we wanted to fix as how we wanted to reinvent ourselves." The E3 previews from places like IGN were positive, and the cast was revealed to feature famous rappers like Twista and Andre 3000, playing into mid-2000s hip-hop culture. It would also feature West Coast Customs, a car customization shop that was huge in 2005 with the major success of the TV show Pimp My Ride. With a long history and a recent reinvention, there was interest in LA Rush when it was released on October 10th, 2005 for the PS2 and Xbox in North America. It would release on the 21st in Europe, and it would later get ports to both the PC and PSP. I had never experienced LA Rush before. I had played some of Rush 2049, but other than that, my experience is pretty limited. I do, however, like a good racing game, and I was intrigued by this one. So I picked it up and played through it recently, and let me tell you how my experience went with it, starting with the plot.
Help me decorate my place while Lydell licks his wounds.
Baby, I know you ain't talking to Lana like that. Change is coming.
In LA Rush, you play as Trix Lane, a street racer who, along with his buddy Ty Mallix, has gotten a fortune from street racing. They have amassed a ton of cars and a mansion. Yet a rich man named Lydell is paying to win the local races, much to the pain of these two. Lydell destroys the mansion they live in and ends up repossessing all of their cars and possessions. The two of them must rise through the ranks of street racing to get everything back, while taking out Lydell and stealing his vacation spot in Hawaii and his girlfriend. This is your main plot, and it's interspersed within the gameplay when you go race to race. You'll see Lydell and your characters shoot jabs at each other as you win circuits across different Los Angeles areas. The plot is light, simple, and silly, going for something that helps bridge the gameplay together and not being riveting in any way. I think that works fine on this front. It's silly enough to keep it light and fun, and it's hardly intrusive. The only time it really is when you get details on a towed car, and you get this little cutscene where you pull out your phone, and it's an insanely long animation of you answering your phone. Otherwise, it really doesn't happen a lot, and when it does, it's okay. It does feel like a piece of history epitomized in gaming, though. It captures the era of hip-hop culture with clothes that fit the theme, and it captures that Pimp My Ride style that was gigantic at that time. Even the West Coast Customs guys show up in cutscenes, and you mix this with the rap music of the era, and it brought me right back to growing up at school, seeing baggy clothes and the like everywhere. Now, is the story gonna win any awards? No. The dialogue is a bit laughable, and the plot is a simple rags to riches plot, but instead they start rich and then rise back up. It's more like a perfect outline of why you must start races with a small entrance fee versus larger ones. It's fun though, and some of the characters that pop up are enjoyable. It's fine for a racing game story, but what you're really here for is definitely the gameplay. LA Rush is a free-roaming racing game where you take the cars you earned and drive across LA to various spots to race in. Each one has a buy-in for the race, so you need to earn more money to race in each one. Eventually you get more vehicles from collecting repossessions, and you move on up in the racing world. Driving in this game is handled extremely well, and it's fast. It handles like an arcade racer, and the handling is easy to pick up and play. Accelerating is extremely fast and gliding around corners is loose, but it feels correct for this type of racing that's going on in this game. Movement is smooth and fun, making breakneck races against other cars perfect. The races on normal difficulty feel close and they're always moving. It uses a free roam approach to these races where points are put on a map for you to hit and you need to figure out how to get to each one. Sometimes it's self-explanatory, and other times you'll have multiple choices, like taking an alleyway or just taking the main road. It makes races feel a bit more random, making the variety around town feel good in a race. Each section of the city has different routes you can take, and different feels to their layouts. I've never been to Los Angeles, so I can't speak to this game's authenticity, but driving in it feels like the media recreations that I see all the time in games and movies. One gripe I have about the racing in this game is the traffic on the road. The city is layered with cars, and a nice part is there is minimal slowdown, but crashes are slow. Taking riffs off of games like Burnout, when you hit another vehicle, the world slows down and you get to watch the crash. The effects are superb the first few times, but it gets tiring after that because you will hit cars often. The world has so many cars, and many of them are just hard to avoid, meaning you will hit them a lot. It'd be fine if the crashes were quick or skippable, but that's not an option. It goes from fast to slow and it becomes a bit of a headache. The heavy traffic in free roam was fine, but when you're going through races, I would have preferred if it was toned down a little bit. One little annoyance I have about the free roam as well is the lack of fast travel. The recreation of LA is gigantic, and I would have liked to hop to each district without having to drive long lengths back and forth. That being said, the driving is well done, and it feels good. All the cars feel slightly different, but don't take away from the driving feeling. One thing that was criticized when this game came out was the lack of player-customized car builds. In this game, you take your car to West Coast Customs, and they upgrade it for you, adding spoilers and whatnot to pimp your ride. A lot of people didn't like that you couldn't customize it yourself, but personally, I kind of like it. It's the experience of going to West Coast Customs. They take your ride and they make it their own and upgrade it for you. I think it's fun to see what they come up with on all of your cars. I like it because it's a neat side addition and it captures the feeling of the show. Now, I do wish there was more to do in single player. It's mostly races and repossessions, and I think in a free roam racer, it's nice to have a little more variety. Racing feels good, but when you constantly swap between a race and running away from pursuers over and over again, it just doesn't have a lot of pizzazz during its playtime. The repossessions are fun and quick, but extremely hard. I ended up having to replay these missions over and over, since the car AI is ruthless in this game. The AI will do everything to take you off the road, which I do think is a bit of fun in races, but in repossessions, it's all about keeping your car safe with minimal damage. It can be brutal on longer drives. On a side note, this game does offer multiplayer split screen, so if you want to race with friends, it's there, which adds a bit of longevity to any race. This game also supports Xbox Live, but don't be deceived by the Live banner, it's only Xbox Live aware, so it only shows you as playing it online. Insignia, the Xbox Live replacement program, does support this feature though. And LA Rush has some solid racing gameplay, and it makes the experience overall fun. But as far as gameplay goes, it does have a few issues that hold it back. The speed in the gameplay wouldn't be captured without the visuals going on in this game. LA Rush uses motion blur heavily. The faster you go, the more the lights and surroundings seem to bend and obscure around you. I don't love motion blur usually, but I think it's used effectively here. It gets that sense of speed down, and I think it works with the urban landscape to make everything whiz by you. The lighting that goes with it is outstanding, and I was surprised just how well done the visuals were in this game. Certain areas of the road have a shine to them, and so do the vehicles. The definition on all of it looks good in 480p, and it sports a nice resolution that really makes the world pop. I also like that each area of LA sports a different enough look to keep the variety strong. Even the streets vary from hilly and open to tighter and urban. All of these make for areas with good variety and make it more entertaining to drive around in. I'm pleasantly surprised by how good the lighting is here, how everything looks solid, and the sheer amount of vehicles on the street with almost no slowdown that I experienced, and it all runs perfectly. LA Rush ends up being a really solid looking game on the Xbox and stands out amongst other arcade racers at the time. The sound effect work in LA Rush is handled well, with cars all sounding well done. If you've played a racing game before, you know what to expect from the sounds of the road. It all feels authentic, and there's a special attention to detail paid to crashes. Even though crashes in terms of gameplay are annoying, they do at least sound great. The wrecking noise of metal destruction sounds solid, and it goes well with the game. The voice acting in the cutscenes is a little goofy, but it works well with the silliness of the plot. You can tell that there is quality behind the voices, with people like Twista, Andre 3000, and Orlando Jones doing voice work, and they add a little more personality to the game. If you enjoy mid-2000s hip-hop, then you're in for a treat. For me, I wasn't as into the genre in the mid-2000s, but it does bring back memories of friends who listen to this stuff all the time. It works as a nice time capsule. Techno tracks are included too, but they definitely don't have the same power. I will say, as one huge plus, this game does support custom soundtracks, so you can play any music burned to your hard drive. So if you don't really like this type of music, just play whatever you got. Custom soundtracks for me elevates any game no matter what, and it definitely does it here. LA Rush is a fun little racing game that would be a good time for any arcade racing fan. It controls well, looks solid, and has a fun soundtrack. The story might not be riveting, but it does feel like a perfect snapshot of the era it was made in. That being said though, the game does have issues that knock it down from being a great racer. The amount of traffic is absolutely insane, and it makes the fast-paced races halt jarringly for long periods. The lack of fast travel is a little tedious, and there's a lack of different things to do. These bits do stop it from being great, but as a racing game fan, I still found it fun. If you want something light to play and want a solid playing racer that maybe you haven't touched before, then I think you have a solid choice here. On my ranking list, LA Rush ranks in at 61 out of the 93 original Xbox games I've covered on the channel so far. It goes above Circus Maximus because LA Rush has more exciting elements, such as its open world, which improves the racing experience. Tie goes above this one because I think it's more creative and it's a far more memorable experience. LA Rush would release to mixed reviews. On Metacritic, it holds a 59 out of 100. IGN gave it a 5.8 out of 10, seeming like they were just upset that it was nothing like Rush, which I do agree it is nothing like the original games. GameSpot gave it a 6.3, saying that some elements were strong, but others were stiff, making it a mixed bag. Official Xbox Magazine gave it a 5 out of 10, and in their review, they talk about hating the crash cutscenes. This mixed reaction wouldn't help with this franchise's future, and this was the last Rush game to this day. Midway Newcastle would go on to make one more game in 2009, The Wheelman, a driving game starring Vin Diesel, and then the same year, Midway would close the company in itself, ending a legacy in the gaming industry. The trademark for the Rush franchise currently sits with Warner Brothers, but nothing has been done with it, just like a few other franchises that they hold from Midway. Yet I will say that the first 3 entries in the franchise are well remembered, especially 2049. These get brought up as fun racing games of the past, and I know people have fond memories of them. LA Rush is not nearly brought up as much from what I've seen, and it seems forgotten. Maybe it's due to a lack of connectivity to the other games, or its mediocre reception just sticks around. On the user aggregate website Backlogged, it holds a 2.9 average with 93 plays, with lukewarm experiences and some poor ones in the reviews. LA Rush never stood on top of the other racing games on the console, with some amazing racing games on the Xbox, and I don't think it really shined because of it. But that does wrap it up for today. If you enjoyed this review, please leave a like, subscribe to keep up with the Retro Xbox content, comment below with any memories with the Rush franchise or Midway games, anything at all. I would love to hear from you. Everybody's opinion is important. And I want to give a huge shout out to my YouTube channel members. Thank you so much for your support. And I'll see you here next time at Camp Xbox.